Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Liam O'Griffin here. This is the MMA Opinion podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Paul O'D.
How are things? And this week we will be talking about the return of Dan Hardy, referee stoppages and judging criteria, what was in the bag, and we will also be talking to Ryan the Hulk Spillane of Bellator fame.
So there we go. Lots to be getting on with. Let's be getting on.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely.
I got it right this week. Oh, hang on. I got the graphics wrong now. All right. How are we all doing anyway?
Very good.
Have we slept?
Barely, but an exciting night of fights. Wasn't expecting a card that with that many finishes, so it was a pleasant surprise.
And for anybody watching, we don't have any wide-angle shot tonight because we needed to use the wide-angle camera to get this lump in.
Yeah.
So
I'm barely in it as well.
So Mr. Ryan the Hulk Spillane, how are things?
Good.
So we let's get going with our news topics first. What was the first news topic that you had there, Paul?
The return of Dan Hardy. Now, this isn't confirmed by any stretch, but he has tentatively agreed a fight with Matt the Immortal Brown. I like this fight just purely based on, we've discussed it before, Matt Brown fought Carlos Condit, that these are guys that are on their way out. If they're going to be fighting anyone, fight someone in the same position as them. So if Dan Hardy's making a comeback at 38 years old, I do like this fight.
Yeah, I think it's the best matchup for him. Although I did say on the MMA Opinion page, my comment was that this is like a dude that you barely know, coming along while you've been queuing all night for like a burger and chips, and like there's a line a mile long, and then some guy you barely know comes up and stands next to you in the queue, like to have a chat so that he can take your place in the line. That's what I feel Dan Hardy is doing with Matt Brown, who has remained active and relevant since Hardy
38 years.
Yeah, and now Hardy comes right in and is at that level. Like once you're matched with someone, you basically stand on the same plinth as them.
But if I'm standing outside a kebab shop at 3 o'clock in the morning and Dan Hardy skips the queue, I'm not going to say boo to him.
Yeah, would Dan Hardy not be a big fight for you, no? If you were Matt Brown, would that be a big enough payday for him? Like, no,
I don't know.
He is fairly popular.
He is popular. I suppose it's kind of like no, it's not. I was going to say it's like kind of somebody fighting CM Punk, but it's not really. In the name value that is it. I mean, it's a good fight. It's a good fight for Matt Brown. It's a good fight for Dan Hardy. The matchmaking is spot on. And if I wouldn't like to see Dan Hardy have to come back in and fight one of these new new youngsters like full of spunk and like no miles in the tank. Like he is at the tail end of his career, even though he's now just restarting again.
Yeah.
Like, is this a one and done? Did he say? Did you hear him say that?
He didn't say one and done, but I don't think for a second that Dan Hardy is coming back to challenge for a title or that he's going to make another run. I think he just has a little bit of fight left in him, and the way his career ended promptly, and he didn't really get a chance to finish on his terms. I think that's more it. It's more kind of like a few fighters have touched on the retirement kind of party and getting out there a few more times. So I'm all for it. I like you said, I like the matchmaking, and if we do get to see him again, he did bring eyes to the sport, especially in the UK. So it's very good for us over this side of the world for him to be coming back.
So I'm just putting it on screen there because we did have a few comments on this throughout. It's a pretty hot topic. 195 engagements. And let me see. Can we get the top? If I switch this to, oh no, most relevant is already the top ones, right?
Yeah.
So Kevin Knapp says Mark didn't think he would fight again. Not sure Brown should either.
I don't know.
Oh, hang on. Mark is tagged. Mark is, yeah. Sorry, he's
Mark
replying
Perez.
to someone else.
Brown probably shouldn't. Realistically, we said this before and after the Condit fight, but under the circumstances, if he is going to continue fighting, these are the type of fights I think are necessary for him.
I just realized I had you on screen there while we were scrolling on the thing. So now we're on screen for the MMA Opinion page. And now Hulk is in the corner. Get him out of there. Right. So
The cameras are going to be all over the place today.
yeah, we're on a new setup here, guys. Bear with us. Ben Doucette says, "Good day, fellas."
How
Good day,
things,
Ben.
Ben?
Are you in the kitchen today, Ben?
Are we entertaining the masses again at work?
What other opinions have we got? Well, yeah, there's
You
a
had
really
your-
good opinion there.
You had your comment there. I'm a Dan Hardy fan, but this is like one of those times when you spend hours queuing. Yeah, you mentioned that already.
Yeah. But I'm kind of disappointed. There's actually no likes on this at all. Like,
Liam O'Griffin getting no love in the comment section.
well, shit, got a like.
Yeah.
Like how that got a like, and look at how much I spent on like crafting 3 paragraphs
You did put
with
in a lot of work.
punctuation.
You've commas
And
in
look,
there.
there's invert, like there's quotation marks. Yeah, I don't know.
There's only one comma. They probably needed a few more, but we won't
Fucking hell.
break you down too grammatically. Ryan Ma said, of all the people's pace to come back to after 10 years of it's not Matt's pace to try and keep up with. Love this fight though.
That's a good point. Yeah, Matt has been active and has progressed with the game.
That is true, but I feel like Dan Hardy never left the gym, if you get what I mean. Like he's a guy that keeps himself in shape. He's a guy that... But the ring rust is certainly going to be a thing after 8 years, you'd imagine.
100% is going to be ring rust. And I think that sitting back and analysing the fights will kind of keep him current on, we say, the technical issues and the technical positions and stuff like that. But you can't beat like getting down and dirty in the fight camps and rolling intensely for 8 and 12 week stints and then taking a rest time, going back at it again. He's missed he's missed the hard rounds over the last 8 years, and that's going to be very, very difficult to catch up with.
Certainly.
Probably the most popular comment in there a few years ago, yeah, maybe still better than the Dillashaw versus Faber in 2021. And
It is very true, though. I mean, that matchup is being sold completely off the back of the gym war that went on and everything.
Yeah.
But that narrative is even 5 or 6 years too old. So yeah, I agree.
Andrew Gill says, yeah, hopefully Herb Dean is the ref. That would be brilliant.
And whatever about that particular narrative, that even is funnier after last night's performance, I suppose.
Yeah, true.
But Dan, of course, has a little bit of a back and forth with Herb Dean about stopping fights.
About stopping fights early, which is a great segue into your second news item there anyway.
Yes.
Which you totally planned, of course.
Of course, naturally. So you have referee stoppages and judging criteria is coming up quite a lot lately, and especially after last night. There was a few fights on the card that people were saying got finished a bit early. Now, in my opinion, I don't think they did, and the one in particular I think people were getting a bit heated about was the Chris Daukaus's finish of Alexei Olenek. And people were saying because he was still on his feet and he was still protecting himself relatively well, that the fight shouldn't have been stopped. But I completely disagree. I think he was more or less out on his feet and he was looking for a way out anyway.
I don't think he was looking for a way out, but he should have been protected from himself. Like Olenek is, how many fights did he have? 70 odd fights.
That was his 75th fight, yeah.
So he's not going to lie down and kind of, offer an arm up for an armbar or kind of, quit on himself. You have to protect a guy like that. Mm-hmm. He's long in the tooth with regards to MMA. Lots of miles on the clock. I think it was a good stoppage. I'd prefer referees to err on the side of caution and to leave it go too far.
Of course. And Ryan, you made a point about something you heard him saying pre-fight in his corner.
Oh no, that was the other fight. That was the Moldovan fella. I actually remembered it was the Moldovan fella and the
Sergey Spivak.
And who did he fight then? The American fella.
Yared Vandera.
Vandera was in the corner and he said something along the lines of "I'm not feeling it" or "I'm not on" or something like that.
Yeah.
And to say that in the middle of a fight, like your brain's not there, like, and then you can see him come out in second round. And he's kind of there, and then he lost in second round as well, like so.
Yeah, he'd mentally checked out.
But obviously, a link of pulling guard in the first few minutes, like, and hunting for a submission is kind of wasn't like him.
He does that anyway, though.
Yeah, but I think he realised early that he was under the caution that fight, and he didn't want to stand with Daukaus. And when the fight seemed like it was going to stay on the feet, I could be completely wrong, and I could be wronging Olenek, but I do feel like he was looking for a way out when he was covering up. He was almost turtled up on his feet.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't have any. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the cameras right here. I don't have any. Don't have any problem with that stoppage at all. No, there was other stoppages, and just to bring Ben Doucette in here, so he is working. It gets us through the day. So the kitchen staff, guys, I'll have a Philly cheesesteak, extra fries. I don't know. What kind of food do you do, Ben? It's probably like a sushi restaurant now, and I'm after ruining it. So Ben said,
Philly cheesesteak sounds damn good, though.
It's a good shout. So Ben said Olenek was out on his feet. He stumbled 3 or 4 feet after the ref stepped in. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Watch the replay. He wasn't going anywhere but down. He was unsure where he even was after the match. Yeah. I have no problem with that stoppage whatsoever. But was there other stoppages there that people were getting upset about?
So we have to look at the main event and the debate on whether, I suppose, whether Derrick Lewis should have been striking him after he went out cold. Now, they do always say strike until the ref pulls you off.
Yeah.
And there's one other example of this that stands out in my head in recent memory. There's obviously loads of examples of it. You've the H-bomb and then the punch on Bisping when he was on the mat. But the one that stands out recently in my head is obviously Jorge Masvidal striking Ben Askren after he knocked him out. It's one of those where you feel like it looks like there's something sinister in it, but it's hard to know for sure. Like, these guys are in there, they're locked in a cage. Ryan, you can probably speak to this a little bit more about the aggression inside there. And you're waiting for the referee to pull you off in a scenario like that. You're not going to take any chances.
Yeah, no. One of my fights, it was one of my earlier fights. I head kicked him and he fell over, and I was going to keep hitting him until the ref pulled me off because I had him on the floor, and I was kind of like, at that point, it's the same with submissions. Like, if I have a submission on, I'm going to break it unless a ref pulls me off or unless they tapped. You know, it's that kind of thing. Like, you're in the fight, you're both getting paid to be inside there. You know, it's the ref is there to get paid inside there to protect both of you. It's his job, his or her job, to take you off at that stage. Like, I wouldn't say it was Lewis' fault for showing extra few shots. He could have sat back. It could have been like the Pat Barry fight. Remember that, where he got knocked out like 4 or 5 times, came back up and won it. Like, you know, like in that situation, you just got to keep hitting them until the ref pulls you off. That was Herb Dean, I think. That was his fault. Yeah, more than Derrick Lewis. You have to have that killer instinct as well. If you're missing that, there are going to be times in a fight where maybe they're not out cold and they do spring back up. So I find it hard to criticise Derrick Lewis, and the argument, of course, then goes back to Herb Dean and how close he was to the action. I seen a funny meme just before we came on air there where there's a picture of him sprinting in the background towards the action when after Blaydes goes down, and the tagline is when you just realise you're about to lose your job. But yeah, look, Herb was quite a bit away from the action when it happened, but then again, people would be giving out if he was too close to it. Like, I suppose in the women's fight,
I wouldn't have been standing that close to Derrick Lewis either. Like,
no, when he's swinging his hands, you're going to be outside the octagon.
Did you see the way that when he was swinging, he was almost doing the splits as well? Like, he puts everything into those punches, and like, we've seen referees get knocked out in kind of YouTube fail videos before. So I wouldn't stand. I don't think he stood in the wrong place at all. Chris Ducasse, whatever his name was, doing the same thing. He literally threw an uppercut and he fell over on his own uppercut as he missed it. He was literally firing his whole body into it. Like, but you're right with the Pat Barry and Czech Congo reference, because that is exactly what happens if you don't Pat Barry was trying his best to finish that fight, but he didn't, as this post by I think this is Andy Hickey's post. Pat Barry didn't put the nail in the coffin. Yeah, and it came back to haunt him. Czech Congo knocked him out, and I don't like Pat Barry didn't really do anything after that fight again. So the one thing I will say though, that was one of those cases where it wasn't for a want to trying. Pat Barry did try to put the nail in the coffin. Yeah. He just missed the nail a couple of times. Yeah, his own finger a few times. Yeah, but you have that in the submission game as well. A few years back, this is going way back now. A Brazilian fighter by the name of Murilo Bustamante. Yeah. He fought, I believe it was Renzo Gracie, but I'm not. Was it Renzo Gracie? Yeah. So he had a submission. He felt a tap, and he let go. And then whoever it was, it might have been Ken Shamrock. No, it wasn't. No, that was Ken Shamrock against Heis Gracie. But it happened anyway to Murilo Bustamante, whoever he was fighting, that He felt the tap, he let go. The referee didn't see the tap, and the fighter denied the tap afterwards. He pulled the chael on him, right? And so now, luckily, Murillo Bustamante went on to get another submission later and finish the fight. But since that time, all Brazilian top team fighters hold on to submissions that little bit longer. And the most prime example of that is Husamar Palares.
Well,
Liam,
let's slow down a bit.
That's a bit too much now.
But that's his team. That's what I'm saying. That's his team.
Plus, Husamar has a definite sinister streak.
He's getting nearly pulled off, and he's still holding on. He's still holding on. The rest
what
of
I'm saying
away.
is that that habit came about because his coach was done dirty.
I think he enjoys it a little bit too much as well, though.
That's a different one now.
Okay.
We get the example and we get the reference, but Husamar is one of those guys. Husamar has been kicked out of 2 promotions for not letting go of submissions, even after the ref has tried to drag him off.
Yeah. There's wait until the ref stops you, and then there's stops you, and you're still fucking holding on, and you're tearing the leg with you.
Yeah. No, okay, I'll stand corrected. Fair enough. So we have some comments. Ben says it's traditional American style burgers and fries. Burgers, fries, fried seafood, steak sandwiches are one of our specialties.
Nice.
We're on the way, Ben. We're on the way.
Might take us a few hours, though.
Yeah. Andy Hickey says Herb Dean was in a different area code to Lewis and Blaydes.
Yeah.
I would have been too, though, to be fair.
But this is it. Like, I am looking at that picture. When you're watching the fight live, you don't realize how far away they are. And to be fair to Herb, he got there within 2 seconds.
Yeah, it was 2 punches, like
yeah.
More could have landed, like.
Oh yeah, there's been worse examples.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's just the fact that he was quite clearly out cold and stiff, and those shots seemed.
But even when he hits the uppercut, like he's still kind of like when you watch it back, when he hits the uppercut, he's kind of there.
Yeah.
But he's not there. But it looks like he's there. It's only when he falls back flat and his head hits the floor that he's not there. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He couldn't
and
be
then
like
the 2 punches after that. Then
he couldn't be like one of those Muay Thai refs that catch the heads as they fall.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be catching fucking the boys.
So this was actually a very hot topic. So if we go to Andy's original post there, Derrick Lewis KO'd Curtis Blaydes clean at UFC Vegas 19 and followed up with some heavy blows before Herb Dean could intervene. What you make of the nail in the coffin shots in MMA? Should fighters display more control, or are they correct to keep going until the ref steps in? Now, there was somebody. I'm gonna have to find the comment now because there's a hell of a lot of comments down here. But let's take a couple of them. Top fan here, Mr. Kevin O'Sullivan. We know that the fighter can continue until the ref stops it, but sometimes we've seen fighters pause or protest to the referees to step in. All except the likes of Game Bread with some super necessary, the 3-piece and the soda and everything else going on there.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but like we talk about fight IQ in there, and it takes a special kind of skill to have that wherewithal in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a firefight with the adrenaline pumping, to be just about to throw a strike and pull back on it. Again, it's. You don't know what their intent is going into strike. It's impossible to know. Now, only Derrick Lewis is going to know whether those strikes were necessary or not. Do you know what I mean? It's a tricky one to look from the outside and say that there was evil intent behind it.
He said in the post-fight interview that he because someone asked him about it, he was like, it was like the Undertaker. The Undertaker come back from the dead to make sure he's dead.
He didn't want them to sit up a la Undertaker and a la Tyson Fury against Wilder as well.
Yeah.
Hold on, what I'm trying to. So Italian, I'm trying to read them and filter them at the same time because I don't want to get a bad one in there. But Nathaniel Matthews, I blame Robbie. Ever since that fight, Herb has been a lot slower to step in. That was the bulldog choke, was it?
Yeah. And
against
Herb,
Ben Askren.
Oh yeah.
And as well that women's fight, I can't remember who was fighting, that he stepped in and then let the fight go again, and then he had to call it 2 minutes later. That was only a few weeks ago.
That was the Conor card. Remember, we watched that live. I remember that one. Yeah.
But he's made a couple of these little mistakes, and that must eke on you when you're in that split second decision that you have to step in. He doesn't want to go in too early. He also doesn't want to go in too late. It's one of the most difficult jobs in the world. Like, it's not.
Absolutely.
So Trey Burns here, another top fan, says, how many times have we seen a guy get dropped and then pop right back up? You follow through until the ref stops you. Carlos Condit used to say his goal was to make the referee save your life. I think he had it figured out, and that was quite a popular one there.
Yeah, and it's, for me, it's true. I know a lot of people see those strikes and they say that it's why the sport has kind of that is perceived as vicious, and it's perceived as kind of a blood sport in a sense. But in boxing, when people are out on their feet, boxers don't stop punching until the ref steps in. Do you know what I mean? It's the exact same thing.
You can get a 10 count and come back. Like you get knocked out, 10 count and then come back up. Like
you see guys often get up on the 10 count and they're out of it. They're on wobbly legs, and that doesn't stop their opponent coming in and going for the kill right after that. So it's just it's going to happen in the sport.
Didn't Dan Healy say something about that, about your brain is actually out and is actually okay to get those shots, or something like that along those lines?
Oh, I don't think you want to quote Dan Healy on that.
yeah.
I think you want to get that quote like spot on before you start quoting a neurologist.
It's okay to take strikes when you're out.
It's headlines on the Daily Star tomorrow.
Professor Dan Healy says.
I think you asked him that and he gave you an answer, but I don't know if it was good or right, good or bad. Like, but I remember he gave you an answer to that anyway.
I'm not willing to quote him at all based on your fucking airy fairy recollection now. Anyway. Yeah. So a couple of more in kind of in the same vein. Send them into the shallow realm if you have to, man. It's a fight. Ref's got to do his job. You got to do what you got to do. Herb Dean got there 1 second after he was dropped. Yeah. And then
most people are on the same page with this. I think on the MMA opinion, there was, like, going through the comments earlier today, there was a few that seen them as completely unnecessary, and I get that, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to see when a guy is out. But look at Gary Clark. Herb Dean should be in the new Mortal Kombat. He's still breathing. Keep fighting. Finish him.
Didn't Blaydes walk out to the Mortal Kombat song as well?
He did, yeah.
That backfired.
Yeah, I love that song.
You wanted to talk about judging criteria as well, because I know me and you have kind of been going back and forth on this, and the guys on the MMA Opinion page as well. We have our group chat going when the fights are on, and we're often debating the scores of rounds and different things. Now, if you listened to Michael Bisping in the commentary last night,
he was atrocious.
Every other round would have been a 10-8 fight, or 10-8 round.
He was atrocious. He was particularly bad last night.
But my question is, like, obviously we understand that there are guidelines that it's for damage and whatever, but we know ourselves that's not how they're being scored. Like, me and you in particular score fights very differently. And we're looking from the same perspective, but
I do them right, you do them wrong.
You could argue that. You could 100% argue that, because I don't score the rounds objectively. I score them as I see the judges scoring them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's because you're trying to win money on the betting odds, which
fails miserably every week.
Don't even talk about betting around Liam now.
No, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Don't you? I'm gonna get fucking Charles Rosa. Don't you worry.
A call out of the Boston Strong.
But okay. So we have the judging criteria. And we've talked about this on numerous occasions. There's 3 levels: danger and damage, or effective striking and effective grappling being top tier. And if you can separate the round based on those criteria, you don't even consider positional after that. You don't consider position, and you certainly don't consider aggression and octagon control, which is the
lowest tier.
Aggression is the lowest tier. And then this is what happened, particularly for the Ketlin Vieira fight. So we had Ketlin obviously controlling positionals, particularly in the third round. So you look at that fight; it was even round 1, round 2 each. Round 3, it all came down to that, and yet we had Ketlin Vieira with probably 4 minutes of control, maybe more, 4 minutes 30. Eventually, Yana Kunitskaya gets on top, lands the elbows, does a lot of damage, but she also accumulated some damage while she was
on the bottom
as well, and with Vieira on her back as she was defending the choke, she was landing shots. Now, they weren't knockout shots, but they weren't light shots either. There was a few of them were causing Vieira to wince in a bit of pain and discomfort. So all of that, you have to weigh the damage done there,
Yep.
versus the control time, and they're not even on the same tier. And then this is where it's at. And yeah, it's a constant debate, but yeah.
Watching it, I feared that they were going to give the decision to Caitlin Vieira, but they did get it absolutely spot on. For me, I think the first round, a lot of people were saying it was actually 30-27, but for me, the first round, I don't think Kunitskaya landed any damaging shots. She was more active off her back and she was landing strikes, but there was nothing significant and nothing that would make you think that it outweighed the control and the kind of pressure she was putting on. And she did half attempt a couple of submissions in the first round, but gave up on them quite quickly. So I would have given the first round to Vieira, but from then on, I think Kunitskaya completely dominated in the fact that she did damage for the rest of the fight, and Vieira's goal to win the fight was just a lay and pray.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said dominated for the rest of the fight, but certainly number 2, and then she did enough to stay ahead in round 3, I would say.
But in terms of damage, she's the only one in round 2 and 3 that did any damage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is fair. That is fair. And that's the thing about jiu-jitsu, like high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners as well. Like, there's a tendency to fight under jiu-jitsu rules and count, we say, 3 points for a guard pass and 4 points for a back take. And then, do you know, how many years have they been training for those as your mini goals within a combat situation? And then you have to kind of flip the switch and realize that those don't mean anything when it comes to an MMA fight. It's danger and damage first and foremost. Now, I agree. I think the Yana Kunitskaya versus Vieira fight was correct, albeit slightly controversial in the mainstream. Yeah. But Phil Hawes versus Naz, the consistency was a bit off there. I felt that Naz was hard done by, even though I had gambled on Phil Haw to win, and I was delighted he did in the end. Slightly relieved, as I'm sure he was too. Yeah. But I think the refs I think judging was a little bit off there.
Yeah, I think, look, Naz only has himself to blame in the sense that, yes, he did a lot of damage in round 3, and I could have easily seen that being a 10-8 round. One judge gave it 10-8, so that it would have been, it maybe arguably should have been a draw, but I don't think he did enough in round 1 and 2 enough damage in round 1 and 2 to outweigh the work that Hawes was doing. So I'm not completely against the decision.
We see the thing is, in round 2, Hawes was on Bambi legs.
Yeah.
For, like, it might have only been for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But in terms of significant moments in the fight where it could have ended, that was one, and the rest of the round wasn't.
So you would have given round 2 to
I would. I was very, very tempted to. Yeah, I was very, very tempted to. Like, I was thinking, you know, before round 3 started, I was like, okay, it's all even here now going into the third. And then, because I was looking for some way to justify keeping my win streak, I was like, oh, maybe those 10 seconds in round 2 weren't so bad. So I was completely trying to get away with it. But just to bring some of the comments in here, Ben, I think we just answered your one there. Can we talk about Yana winning a round while someone had her back on the ground? She was ferocious. Yeah. Yeah, so, like, Ben obviously appreciates the work rate of Yana here, and that's obviously correct. Rebaz and Rodriguez, and
that's the fight that Herb Dean was in and out on. So he's
the heads up. Yeah. That was the one. That was the 2 girls that fought in the main card of
UFC
Conor
257. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I was so depressed after the Conor fight that
everything else is out.
He's blocked everything else out.
I blocked out that entire event. I don't know what went on. Kevin O'Sullivan, when you give an 8 count, you will check your fighter's balance and reactions before you let him or her continue.
Yes,
so
Kevin,
is that in?
But in boxing, you'll often find that as long as you answer the call and you put your hands up, they will let you continue, even if you're still wobbly and still.
Well, they won't. They shouldn't let you continue if you're wobbly. But having said that, even like if you were wobbly, that like if you were wobbly, if you dropped, you got, like we say, dropped and you're kind of in out.
Yeah.
Then you get back up, you take one wobble, and then you steady yourself. You still have a concussion. You know, you still got minor brain damage, and you should be removed. Like, if you follow concussion protocol, you need to be removed from from the field of play.
But I've seen it numerous times in boxing.
It happens all the time. This is the argument for MMA safety with regards to knockouts, and the counter argument is the ground and pound, is the shots after the fight. The fighter's obviously out until the referee gets there. Yeah. So there's you can go either way on that one. Ben, it was scored off damage last night. See, that's my point, Ben. I don't think that the Naz and Phil Hawes fight was scored consistently with regards to, like, so it was almost like a different crew of judges came in for that particular fight.
But then again, I don't believe that it was a robbery either way.
No, it was close.
As I said, Naz kind of only has himself to blame there. He could have finished that fight, in my opinion, in the last 30 seconds, but chose to engage in the clinch. He zones out.
I zoned out because I watched none of these fights. I only watched the heavyweights, and that was it.
So Brendan Russell says, let's talk about Ryan Spillane's terrible with a fur coat that's more controversial than any of the fights last night.
It is very true, and this is, by the way, this is his second appearance in the last 3 to 4 weeks on this show. Same coat.
No, I wore black last time. This is white. 2 different sheep.
Okay. That doesn't make it any better, by the way.
Absolutely does. This one has a hood as well. The last one didn't have a hood. You're just old. You don't get fashion.
That's true as well, I suppose.
2 year old, like, and Brendan's old as well. You don't get fashion. It's all about fashion.
We need to move on to what was in the bag. Mr. Otman Azaitar is apparently not cut from the UFC, even after Dana saying that he for sure was cut after his antics at UFC 257 as well, where he breached COVID protocol and he snuck someone into at the Fight Island Hotel. This has kind of been a bit of a talking point on social media at the moment. A lot of people are saying, look, they're bringing him back because he's an exciting fighter. There's another narrative building that there's something a bit suspect about the way that he's after coming back, and people are questioning what was in the bag and what's going on with this whole situation.
What was in the bag, Ryan?
You can't say it was drugs, because aren't the 2 boys like the most tested in this year? Then they haven't, him and his brother been tested like 11 and 8, like.
Yeah,
why are they being tested so much? Is there some?
This is the thing.
Because of the bag, like you kind of would test them because they were sus, like.
But they were tested quite highly even before this.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now they've been tested. I know Abu's been tested twice at least since, and Otman once since. But yeah, look, there's just something very sus about the whole situation.
What I find suspect is that Ali Abdul Aziz.
Yeah.
That's the managed. He basically manages everybody that's not Conor McGregor in the UFC, and he posted a kind of a big thank you post, a big thank you tweet to the UFC for reconsidering this. Then he followed it up a little bit later saying that he wanted to thank somebody else. They know who they are. This is way above my pay grade. I mean, if it's above a management team's pay grade and it's somebody above a manager talking to the UFC brass,
yeah,
who the hell is that? Like, who's above a manager? Like the most successful manager in the UFC right now, the team that he's got put together there, who's above him?
Yeah,
who's making that call?
The lads
must be
for
the Prince
sure
of Saudi Arabia or something, or.
The lads for sure have some connections. No, we can only speculate, but there is something very suspect about the whole situation. Very suspect.
Jesus. Yeah, my new favorite, our new favorite podcast, Jesus. Actually, Ben, you might like it, is called Godcast. Check it out.
It is genuinely hilarious.
It's very, very funny.
Big shout out to the guys over at Godcast, and they have some connections as well. By the way, they have some very funny guests.
Very good connections. But yeah, so who could it have been?
What could it have been, or who could it have been?
Who could have intervened to get him back in there?
I'm not going to touch on the theories around the 2 lads.
Do it. Come on. Do it. Come on.
You do it.
Who
the theories.
Who do you reckon, Ryan?
Has to be some money, like, because like it's all about money in this game, like. So like.
I don't think it was Donald Trump.
No,
because he generally intervenes on behalf of American fighters or European fighters, and quashing court cases that get fighters paid and stuff.
Oh, here you go.
We've got some comments coming in.
Oh no.
Dana White. We're after opening up a bag of worms here as well. all I know is I'm not going to comment because I'll have the fucking Azaitar brothers knocking on my fucking door, but that they're connected, and I don't think it's all above board. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
What's above board? Come on, say it.
Something suspect in the bag and the suspect connections.
Say it.
Ben Doucette says it was all
It was a
all
list.
the illegal streamers. Yeah, no, I get you.
We got
or
him.
else those guys that pushed up the GameStop.
The stonks.
The stock, yeah.
So
We need to move on.
Jesus,
We're going to get ourselves in fucking trouble.
we're gone past halfway mark and we haven't even talked about the fights yet.
And we do need to talk to Ryan the Hulk Spillane as well, who's
All right, well,
joining us today.
Let's do that for now, and we'll
Take a break. Take a breather. That's who you calm
we'll
down.
put some heat on Ryan there. So, do you want to ask? Is there a question you want to ask Ryan there?
Yeah, so look, we know you've signed to Bellator, and the timing is obviously a bit tricky with trying to get a visa because they're only putting on shows in America at the moment. Yeah. Now, I believe you have been granted a one-fight clause that you can fight elsewhere.
Yeah.
So is there anyone that you would like to call out outside of Bellator that is currently active in the European scene?
Signed for a certain promotion.
signed for a certain promotion.
I think that me versus Ermin Smijic would be an absolute belter of a fight.
Yeah.
We fought back in 2015 or 2016. So a long time ago now. I think I've improved immensely as a fighter as then, and he has as well. I think two former world champions. We meant to have fought in 2018 after I won the Europeans in Romania. It was meant to be the big thing that I come back and fight him in the Worlds and all that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't make it. I ended up winning that Worlds. He turned pro. He has 3 fights to his name at this stage.
Yeah.
I think for Bray to put that fight on is just it's an easy setup for them. 2 former world champions come back at it for a rematch.
Yeah.
Easy fight for themselves.
It does seem a no-brainer because you have IMAF. IMAF regularly put out dream matchups that they would like to see from former IMAF contestants, and they've been pushing this one for quite a few years.
Absolutely.
And now is the opportunity to get it done. You have one guy that's signed to Brave on a 3-fight contract. There isn't too many heavyweights out there that are worthy matchups in a sense. Like he has 2 world titles at IMAF, and you had one the following year to him. It seems like it's a no-brainer that's the fight
He
to
finished
make.
most of his fights. I've finished all my fights. You know, we're both guys that go in there, and we're not guys that wait it out. Like, you know, we go in there and we go for the kill. Like, I think it's just a very, very exciting fight, especially for your show who doesn't have that many heavyweights fighting for them. I think they've had like 3 or 4 heavyweights in the last 9-10 shows, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're doing their big run of shows in Bahrain in March and April.
Yeah.
It's easy for 2 of us.
Very good.
Very
And I do want to get your opinion as well before
I was just going to say it.
on the Bellator ranking system. And we have touched a little bit on the podcast about the heavyweight situation at Bellator at the moment.
And the comments are going this way as well.
And
Yes.
can we back up as well how that none of you mentioned me when we talked about the heavyweight rankings? Didn't even get a snippet of my name. Didn't even mention my name, guys.
You currently don't fit the criteria, Ryan. Apologies.
But you didn't even mention me. Fucking hell. Talk about favoritism.
So, top 10.
Listen, you're on the podcast now.
Yeah.
You can easily just push you out the door here. Like,
I like to see you try. You'll do nothing.
I'm about the same size as you, but I still won't try.
Liam's
So-
about the same size too.
I'm on my way down to 70 kilos, boy. You won't be able to see me when I turn sideways in about 4 weeks.
So, if we go back to the top 10, and we did touch on the topic of Jake Hager and where he's going to lie in this division, what is your take on Jake Hager possibly being in the top 5? And what's next for him if he does get ranked top 5?
It's absolutely disgusting, to be honest. It's absolutely a shame that he would be in the top like 5 or 6 fighters, like, and he's an absolute shambles of a fighter. Like I could technically, so let's say if this pandemic didn't happen, and dream pro fight for me would either be Haskell or Hager. You know, I think those are perfect fights. You know, and for me to go in there, have one fight for like my only pro fight and be ranked top 5 because I've beaten him, that's absolutely disgusting, I think.
Look, they're kind of tied to the fact that it's not the deepest division.
No, and the same in most organizations. It's not a really deep division. You know, even I noticed after Chris Stalkus fought that he had no idea who to call out next. Like, because I think he pushed into 10 because of that fight. Like, and
Yeah.
who the top 10 heavyweights, like, do you know?
And most of them are tied up as well.
But I
It's a
guarantee you can
tricky
tell me who the top
situation.
10 lightweights are.
Yeah.
You can bang them out easily. Heavyweight, you can't. Like, heavyweights are always not the flushest of divisions.
Well, the UFC heavyweight division is pretty stacked at the moment. It's a good time to be a UFC heavyweight, but I take your point. In other organizations, it's a division that's not generally stacked. But this is going to, I think, for the Bellator to introduce these rankings is going to put some clarity around this, and it certainly makes your call outs in the future more intelligible.
Absolutely.
So just to bring in the comments here, so Andy Hickey, we're going to get to Andy's post in a second, but a question for Hulk: as part of the 23 heavyweights on the Bellator roster, what do you make of the rankings? So you kind of touched back and forth on that, but do you want to answer that question as it's asked there? And let's see what it is.
I think I'm number 1, Andy, and the rest of them are shite.
There you go. But
I actually think it's incredible that they're bringing a ranking system, and it's not how you were saying how the UFC could like pull out fighters when they want to pull out fighters. I think it's like how Bellator stepping away and they have a team of journalists doing it. I think that's really cool. And
yeah, they said that it was completely independent. It was a third party ranking system, so that's important. There's a bit of integrity there. There's a bit of honesty to it.
I think it's incredible.
Not that UFC is not honest, by the way.
Yeah. Daddy Dana. I think it's incredible, as you were saying, like as a fighter, like I know now who I need to call out to get to a title, let's say. But like especially for lads now, like who are in divisions, like let's say like like Brian Moore now, when they release the rankings, he knows exactly who to call out. Lads who are like very close to titles, like know what fights are getting again the fastest way up there. It gives way more clarity, and I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So Ben was asking, where would you rank yourself? Now,
Like
we know you said at the top, right?
1.
But honestly, where would you rank yourself?
On
Are
that,
you in the top 10?
in that list? Definitely top 10. Have to be. Like the guys, like half of them are retired. Like have to be top 10 at least.
you have
Get the list up.
You
Bang
have-
the
We're
list
going to
up.
get the list.
Bang the
Relax.
list up.
Relax.
You
Don't be-
have realistically, I'm going to pick 2 matchups, and you've talked about Jake Hager, so that's 1, and Tyrell Fortune as well, who's a young enough heavyweight, young pro, and they're both realistically going to be in the top 10 based on the criteria.
I put Tyrell in top 3, like if not.
Where
top
do you see yourself right now against both of those guys?
If we're talking about Hager, that's not, we don't even talk about that fight. I think Tyrell is actually a really good fighter, and I watched his last fight. He fought on, I think it was the same card as Hager.
Yeah,
he got he's some really nice wrestling, and he's got some powerful hands. I personally see myself beating him.
Yeah,
I'd be crazy to say that I'd be afraid of going in here and saying, "Oh, he's going to beat me," because realistically, I'm going to be fighting him in the next 2 or 3 years. So I think that's a nice fight for myself as well. Like, but
yeah,
as a career decision, it's Hager first because he's fucking shit.
yeah. Poor old Hager.
God.
We're gonna have to at Hager on this one and see. if
Not
we can
Hager.
get
He's
a
fucking
reaction.
ignoring my DMs.
And,
So Ben is saying Jake Hager top 5 baby gross and Tyrell Fortune versus Ryan Spillane. That would be fun.
definitely.
It's going to happen. Like there isn't a huge number of heavyweights there, and it's going to be like a tournament, and winners will progress, losers will fight each other and work their way back up. This whole pot is going to be churned over in the next 5 years, so they're all going to fight each other. So it's a great time to be a heavyweight in Bellator
or the UFC.
anywhere. So so sorry, I cut you off there, Paul. What were you going to say?
No, just are we getting that post up for the heavyweights there, so
Yes.
we can just have a look at it?
So this is a Twitter feed by one of the MMA Opinions writers, Mr. Andy Hickey.
It's my shopping list.
Yeah, Andy. So at Up the Darce on Twitter. Make sure you go ahead and follow him there, guys. He's also managing the MMA Opinion Twitter page as of today.
Yeah, and he's our resident Twitter statistician as well. If you follow him, he comes out with great stats every day, and they're always applicable to what's going on in the world of MMA at the moment. But looking at that list as well, Ryan, I do want to ask you, there is a lot of the guys here that are 30, even 35 and over. What do you think? Like, obviously, you see yourself as a couple of years away, and you need to get a few fights under your belt before you start competing against that top 5.
I didn't say that.
But realistically, that's the way it's probably going to go. You're going to get a few fights before you get up there. How many of these guys do you think are realistically going to still be there in 4 to 5 years' time?
Call
or
some
3
names
to
out there
4
and I'll
years'
tell you.
time.
So Fedor,
I think Fader has one fight left in him. Realistically, he retired.
Josh
1 or
Barnett.
2. Yeah.
He's gone, no?
Still
Never
technically
never
signed.
competed in Bellator, but he's still signed. Yeah. Czech Congo. He's retired, isn't he?
He's done.
So that's a lot of. I think Frank Mir has moved on to
bare knuckle boxing.
bare knuckle boxing, so he's gone. So a lot of the old school guys are kind of out of there.
Someone like a Matt Mitrione or a
Matt Mitrione is on his way out as well, I reckon.
Yeah.
Sergey Karatonov.
He fought recent enough, didn't he?
no, he
He
hasn't,
hasn't
fought in
competed
18
within
months.
the last 18 months.
Fuck off.
And
He had the
he's
axe- he had the accent,
37, 38 as well.
And he had the accent too, didn't he? Got attacked on outside a tournament or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What do you think the shape of this division looks like in 3 years' time? Obviously, you see yourself
Yeah,
right at the top of that, but I want to know, is it a very different landscape when you get up there?
Definitely, like most of those guys be gone. Like, it's, like look on that list. Like you have Steve Morey. He's one that's kind of pushing his way up. He's young enough too. You have Tyro Fortune. Like Hager, realistically, like you know, is he going to have more than 6-7 fights? Like realistically, do you know, like Linton Vassell. Like fuck me, like
He's 40.
yeah. Get away.
He's 40 if he's a day.
Gokhan Sars, whatever his name is. He's on. He's young enough as well.
embarrassment.
Stop it, you know.
Embarrassment, boy. You need to get you some English lessons.
the
before
name
you get-
pronunciation.
Put back up the
are
list
good.
there now. Put back up the list. You were saying Tim Johnson's gone.
Well,
I just think he's at the end of his career.
Yeah.
Franklin Devian is only 2-0. Like he started off as a pro. Like he's one I could fight like tomorrow. Like
off the bat, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, like and then Bader. Like is Bader going to come back to heavyweight? Or is he going to relinquish his title?
It depends on how he does in the tournament, I reckon.
Yeah, if he goes out in the first round, he's going to go
back
straight
up to
back to
heavyweight,
heavyweight, yeah, of course. But I just the reason I wanted to ask that is I do see it being a very different picture in 3 to 4 years' time. And like you mentioned, there is 4 or 5 guys there. But are you hoping to get up there before a couple of these guys bounce into retirement and get a couple of legend fights under your belt?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to fight a few of them. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a good one to have, like as like their last fight is to fight me, and I demolished them, and then they're done. They retire off a bad loss.
Very good.
Yeah, like it'd be cool. Like it'd be incredibly cool to fight some of those guys in that list. Like, and I've said it for ages. Like having all those guys inside Bellator is really cool, and like to be able to fight some of them before they finish up will be awesome. Like.
Yeah, there's a few legends of the sport in that division. It's
like even the whole story about I know I'm cutting back to the UFC now and you're gonna hate me, but like Orlovsky fighting Tom Aspinall, like Tom Aspinall's wasn't it? No, it was the Casey O'Neill fight. I think Casey O'Neill wasn't born yet by the time the other girl had her first fight or something like that.
Alexei Oleinik was 2-1 in MMA before, or 4-1 in MMA, apologies, before Casey O'Neill was born.
Yeah, like
Is that another Andy Hickey stat?
That is an Andy Hickey stat.
I
as
actually
always.
see on Twitter.
Give the man some props.
But
He's
like
definitely got the stats.
like Orlovsky's first ever UFC fight was 2000, like
Yeah.
and then Tom Aspinall
It's insane.
was a kid, like you know, then
Yeah.
like you know that's incredible. Like I think, and for him to fight him and beat him that way, like that's cool. Like I'd love to do that.
Those passing of the guard fights, there's certainly more esteem to it at heavyweight, I believe. And hopefully, just for your sake, that when you get up there in 2-3 years' time or whatever time frame it takes, that there's a few of those guys hanging about that would make for fun fights as well.
Love to fight Chael Sonnen.
And a couple of those guys over in European fight cards would be phenomenal as well.
What are you shaking your head over there for?
Chael would ruin you in
the mouth.
in a mouth match. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, but I ruin him in the physical one then as well.
Fair enough.
You're gonna have to because you're gonna like, yeah. He's. I'm a huge Chael Sonnen trash talking fan.
Yeah.
I think he's a master of it. And you have a bit to go on that. We're gonna have to
We'll work on that. Don't worry.
We're gonna have to kind of.
He's certainly not
do some
shy of
drills on
calling
that.
people out anyway.
Do you think?
That's not going to be an issue.
My Instagram is full of call outs. I think that my first week of being signed with Bellator, I called out most division. Or like a few.
You've got to focus in on one and just keep poking, and we know who that's going to be.
Oh, it's gonna be Hager. Oh,
Yeah,
Hager's
yeah.
gonna be sick on my face. I'm gonna send him jocks with my face on it the whole lot. Like he's gonna be sick of me. Sick of me.
Very good. We do need to move on to some fights because we are basically an hour in and we haven't even touched on last night's card. We're going to be running a little bit long this time. We'll go through the main card anyway, I suppose. And we've kind of touched on a few of the fights already when talking about the referee stoppages, etc. But the main event, outside of the Lewis finish, what did you make of the fight in itself and of how calm Lewis looked in there under the kind of I won't say the attack of Curtis Blaydes, but the threat of attack from Curtis Blaydes?
So I think he had a good game plan. I felt he definitely wasn't firing on all cylinders. I was a little bit concerned for Lewis in the first round. I don't think he started at the pace he wanted to start at. Now, having said that, once you listen to his post-fight interview, they pretty much had the game plan set the way that the fight actually unfolded. Yeah. So, fair play to him for that. So how did the fight go? I was a bit concerned for Lewis at the start. I felt that he could have gotten dropped and possibly finished in the first. Did well to he defended 2 or 3 takedowns. Yeah. Any time, there was one particular takedown where Curtis Blaydes switched to a single, and then as soon as he switched to a single, it's you're not getting that, because Derrick Lewis's balance is very deceptive. He doesn't look that athletic, but man, he can do the splits. He can stand on one leg. He can balance. He can fight for an underhook and get back to his feet. So that wasn't happening.
You try to go for the high single. Yeah. Try to lift up to the shotgun grip, and it just wasn't working.
It wasn't working. But that's his jam. That's Lewis's kind of secret ability, is to be able to balance on one leg. You don't normally see heavyweights with that ability, but yeah, you're right. Blaydes, I think he actually had a really good first round. He was on the right track. He was shy on the double legs. That was going to be his secret weapon, was the double legs. Yeah, he was shy on them because he got caught with an uppercut in the first
30 seconds.
So that just killed his game plan. So what you had was somebody with 2 different people with a game plan, and one got shut down, and then that's the result.
I think a little bit was that it was a game of patience. I think Lewis did very well to not come out and throw a lot of strikes early, and because I think Blaydes' game plan was to wait for the strikes and go under with a power double. So it was a game of patience. Who was going to kind of walk around each other, if you will, until the other kind of came aggressively. And I think Lewis won it hands down. When the first takedown attempt came in the first 30 seconds and he got clipped with the uppercut, it made Blaydes very hesitant to go for the takedown. And I think he was kind of a little bit rattled after that. And you could kind of see it coming in the second, that he was getting impatient and he just kind of lunged at him.
Even you look at the footwork difference, like Lewis was literally flat-footed, just hunkering down, waiting, and then Blaydes was bouncing in and out, trying to ping him and all that, and all Lewis was waiting for was them coming at him, that's all he was waiting for. And Blaydes had to come in and take him down. That's the only way he was going to win the fight, by taking him down.
But you feel like Blaydes was doing that in the in and out and the few strikes. I don't think he ever intended on actually striking with Lewis. Obviously, I'm stating the obvious, but he was trying to draw strikes out of Lewis. Yeah. But Lewis never responded until there was the threat of a takedown. And I thought Lewis did phenomenally in that regard. I think the first round, you were saying that Blaydes did quite well in. But I think it was more the fact that Lewis was so patient in the first round that there was very little threat towards Blaydes, and it made Blaydes impatient in the second round, leading to the finish.
And we talk about this all the time as well when we're training here in the gym. If your opponent has a speed advantage over you, then don't chase them. No point in chasing them. We've got the Karate Twins here in the gym, and Ryan will attest to this. But those 2 guys, they can bounce in and out of range. They will have hit you 5 times before you even realize that they were on the way. Yeah. And then, so if you're the one that's trying to chase them, you're never going to catch them. You're going to look like a punk.
You're going to get
You're going to overreach. You're going to overreach, and you're going to get counter punched. The correct tactic for somebody like that is wait, catch them while they're moving forwards, and I think that's what Lewis was doing. Did you get a sense of that, Ryan? Was it like the tactics that you should use to fight the Twins?
Yeah, I watched that fight very reminder of my spars last week. But it's watching it. I thought Blaydes was doing very well up to him getting knocked out.
Yeah.
So I thought that like Lewis didn't look that great, but then Lewis doesn't look great. He knocks you out and then the fight's over. Do you know? He doesn't have to look good if you're dead on the floor, like, do you know. I thought Blaydes. I thought he should be way more active. Like, he got him against the fence in the first round, and that's when his kind of best kind of a takedown attempts came.
Yeah.
Like, out in the open, he was doing fuck all. Like that double leg was nothing. Like, and then the second double leg he shot put him out cold. You know,
Yeah.
his better takedowns were off the fence. I think he should have tried to march him down and put him against the fence. But then that's hard to say when your man's trying to swing head for leather. Like,
But that was my point in the preview. I felt that that the only way that Blaydes was going to get Lewis down was in the open with a double leg. I think that Lewis's cage defense is too good.
Yeah.
For I don't think many people have taken him down against the fence.
yeah.
I can't remember now off the top of my head. I might be making
there's
an absolute
probably
dick
a
of myself.
couple.
But then
But
it's just the threat of a big shot when you're shooting for a double leg. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I just think Blaydes should have, after the first attempt in the first 30 seconds, he should have abandoned the goal to force the wrestling, and he should have just been as patient as Lewis and tried to pick him apart like he was doing a little bit on the feet, and just start winning rounds until it gets to the third or fourth and someone's in Lewis's ear in the corner going, you've got to be active.
Yeah.
And at that point the takedown will come when it's available and he's overreaching on stuff.
Was this Curtis Blaydes' first 5-rounder?
No, he's had main events before.
Okay.
Didn't the Volkov one go 5 rounds as well? And
Yeah, I just couldn't remember there.
He just put so many takedowns together, and the pace was phenomenal.
yeah,
He
he's
never let up.
most takedowns, isn't he?
Yeah.
In UFC history.
Yeah, he didn't add to that last night.
So
Yeah, but it was a phenomenal performance by Lewis. And the one thing we talked about this on Friday on the podcast, it's tough to see where he goes next. You said about the call out of John Jones that that's the fight you really want to see.
for Lewis, yes. That's more my contempt for John Jones more than anything else. I just think that John Jones is skipping the queue coming up to heavyweight and expecting an immediate title shot. Not that wouldn't be the case. Like when a champion moves up, you should get a title shot. I agree with that, but that's in the absence of
A legitimate
contenders,
Yeah.
of which there are at least 3 or 4 guys that could possibly be next in line for a title shot, and nobody would complain about a Derrick Lewis fighting for a title. I think Volkov could fight for a title.
The winner of Rosenstruck and Gann.
Ngannou was already there.
Yep.
You know, so there's so
That's
many.
4.
So there's so many contenders.
But then wouldn't your argument then go into the light heavyweight division as well with Izzy stepping up?
No.
No, because
Most of those guys
they've already lost
top
to
5.
John Jones.
Yeah. They've all had a loss for the belt, and they're all kind of trying to put wins together to get back up there.
Yeah.
It's a little inactive at the moment. Now, there's a couple of guys there that would argue that they're ahead of Izzy for a fight, but I don't agree with that. I think now was the time for Izzy to come up, but the fight, of course, should have been Izzy versus John Jones.
Yeah.
But obviously he vacated the belt and left, so it's...
Yeah.
So yeah, so my wish list is for Derrick Lewis to now fight John Jones. If John Jones gets past Derrick Lewis, then fair enough, fight for the title.
Yeah.
And if Lewis does us a solid and knocks that prick out, well, then we can just send John Jones packing back to Israel Adesanya and get the match that we want in the first place.
Huge fight then as well, yeah.
So that's my take on it. But will we move down through a couple more fights on the card, because we're at the hour mark now. So obviously, let's talk about the co-main and then maybe pick out
1 or 2 other fights. Yeah.
We talked about the co-main already, no?
We did touch on it, yeah, about the decision, I suppose. But the one thing I do want to say is you touched on Kunitskaya and in the clinch, that's how she was going to win the fight, just being the stronger girl. And I said, no, Vieira will be able to get her down. And we had this argument. I was proven right in the sense she was able to get her down, but Vieira just did nothing with the takedowns. And you touched on jiu-jitsu fighters, and that's their kind of game plan. They're point fighting in the jiu-jitsu world as opposed to... But she has to learn from that. She can't take people down and lay on them. It's never going to work.
Well, this is going to be one of those fights that she learns from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like this has happened in the IMAF for years, because like coaches and fighters who are massive UFC fans, I've obviously taken their cues from watching UFC fights and how they've been scored over the last 2 decades. And then when IMAF goes to the letter of the law with regards to scoring and only scores on danger and damage, well, then you have an awful lot of fighters who are like, wait, but I was on top for the whole round.
Yeah.
How did you score that against me? And then you get fighters in there being educated on the system of danger and damage. So now this would I would say this would be the first time that Vieira has come up against this type of scoring. Well, not I know she's had loads of fights before, but the score cards were that close and she came out on the worst of it. Now she has to ask herself, why did I not win that fight? Yep. And it would have only taken a dozen or so strikes in the dominant positions that she already had. Like she had the dominant positions. She just didn't throw the strikes to win the fight. But
that's my opinion, and it's no disrespect to Yana, but Yana didn't win that fight for me. I think Vieira lost the fight.
Yeah, good point. But fair fucks to Yana for staying in there, and you know she could easily have wilted and just given up because she had her back taken. She was being taken down when she didn't want to be taken down. She was good in the clinch against the fence, but the trips were catching her. The outside reaps and particularly the start of the third round, she got drawn into a striking match just for like 5 seconds, and then as soon as she overcommitted, Vieira was in underneath with a trip, and then the entire round then was Vieira's, apart from the fact that she wasn't doing anything to cause any damage. So yeah, it was like I actually thought this was a really, really good fight. I was excited. Now most of the reason I was excited was because I had a kind of a streak going, but
but wasn't your streak gone by
my streak was already broken, but you know there was a bit of pride in saying, like, I wanted to be able to say at the end of the night that it was all down to Charles Rosa and I got everything else right. Like at this stage, like if Yana and Derrick Lewis won, I was kind of I was justified in it. But anyway, while we're on it, Derek Minner, Charles Rosa. Minner looked awesome,
phenomenal, and I kind of suggested he might have a slight advantage on the mat, and
I shit all over that, and I was completely wrong.
But I had no idea that he would be able to control him so easily and look so comfortable. His transitions were phenomenal. His control when he was on top was phenomenal. He did quite a bit of damage when he was on top and threatened as well, and did well when he was being threatened. Submissions against him. So
Ryan, you have a load of notes on this fight, don't you?
Yeah. Just let me look at my notes there, please.
All right, we'll come back to you there in a second. But so I think the big difference here is MMA grappling as opposed to jiu-jitsu. And now this is the second time. Now I said during our preview that it was a shock that Bryce Mitchell dominated Charles Rosa in the fashion that he did when they fought. And we were kind of like, maybe Bryce Mitchell is better than what we thought.
Yeah.
Maybe if it happens twice, yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Maybe Charles Rosa isn't no, he's undoubtedly, some of those arm bars were very, very close in the second round particularly. Mm-hmm. But the thing was, he was accepting guard bottom and looking for arm bars. That's not MMA grappling.
Again, it's the same mistake Vieira made, but just from the bottom position.
Correct.
He accepted that he was in a jiu-jitsu match as opposed to an MMA fight, and that's kind of what caught him in the end.
And a big shout out to James Krause in the corner of Derek Minner as well, giving him step-by-step instructions, not only to in positional, but to remind him to strike.
Yeah.
He's like, drop an elbow here, let's get a shot off here, watch out for the triangle. There was such technical advice. Phenomenal performance by James Krause in the corner yet again. Charles Rosa, I mean, those, as I said, those arm bars were close, but man, your tactics when you're on bottom is sweep or stand up.
Yeah. Throw up a couple of submissions, but if you don't get one,
you got to get
back up.
Got to get back up.
We look at the two heavyweight fights before we go, really briefly. You had Aspinall in the opening fight against the legend Arlovsky, and my God, that guy looks like a killer. The way he got the finish in the end, a lot of people were saying it was a little bit soft, that he didn't have his hooks in or he didn't have anything, but he had that squeeze on tight, and he just jumped straight on it. There was no, the minute he got him to the ground, it was over. What do you make of Aspinall so far?
He's a very, I think out of all the heavyweights I fought recently, he's a big threat. He doesn't move like a heavyweight. It's very fast. His striking is very crisp. And then obviously I think his dad is like the head coach of the jiu-jitsu program in Kaboom.
Yeah.
Kabam, whatever it's called.
Kabam.
Like he put out, Arlovsky, like I think he's a big threat for any of the heavyweights stepping up. I think him versus
Chris Daukaus
be a nice fight. But then you kind of look at rankings. Would that make sense then? Because what ranking was Arlovsky?
I don't know if Arlovsky was ranked.
So if he was not ranked, then that makes a good fight then for him and Chris, because Chris is now 10.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good fight. I think
I think, apart from the fact that he showed a very dominant performance against Arlovsky here, I think that the temptation will be to move Tom up the rankings quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a mistake. I think he's so young. He still has a bit of growing to do. He's not quite as big as he's going to be in another 5 years. Do you know? I know he's 20. I think he's 27 now.
Yeah.
But like around about that, like the 30-32 should be the time when he's challenging for a title. So I would recommend take your time. Daukaus being next is a great fight, and another maybe top 15 after that. Then move into the top 10, top 5 after that. I think he's 4 fights away from a title shot. I would hate to see him now get crushed by an Ngannou or like
be moved up too quickly against one of the killers in the division.
The top 5 guys are too big for him right now.
Yeah, the one thing I was ultimately impressed with out of Aspinall's performances, we saw in Arlovsky's last fight, he fought Tanner Boser, which was another guy that was coming in with that power. He was a young guy that there was a little bit of hype about, and Tanner Boser just kind of got overwhelmed by the whole situation. Aspinall looked so relaxed. 3rd fight in the UFC, fighting a former champion, a legend of the sport, and he just looked so calm at points in the first round with his hands down, evading strikes. He looks the real deal. He absolutely looks the real deal. We touched on it. He could be a champion. And he said it before the fight in the VT that if he's not a champion in the next 2 years, it'll be 5 or 10.
Yeah.
So he seems to have the right approach, and that he's not going for the belt immediately.
Yep. Ryan, what did you make of the flurry that at stop? Do you reckon that should have been stopped?
I think it should be stopped. You were saying it shouldn't, but I think it definitely was. I think Arlovsky was looking to the floor, like his eyes were literally pointing the floor, and he was getting hit with like at one stage there it was like 8 hooks were getting thrown at his face, like
yeah.
With the flurry before that, I think the 8 hooks should have been like the coffin. Do you get me?
The nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
No, I agree, but I actually felt that. So Michael Bisping said it was a 25 punch combination. Not sure he actually counted them out. I think he was kind of estimating him at that. But like there was a bit of mental quit in Arlovsky following that.
Yeah.
There was a point where Aspinall threw like 5 slapping hooks to the body of Arlovsky.
Yeah.
When one uppercut would have ended it.
Yep.
And I almost feel, and Lara Sanko, the UFC interviewer, tweeted as it was happening saying, "Where are the uppercuts?" And she was spot on. An uppercut there would have been that nail in the coffin. An uppercut would have continued the flurry and it would have been out of there. And I don't believe Aspinall doesn't know how to throw proper right hooks to the body. And I don't believe he doesn't know how to throw an uppercut. I think he was like, okay, I've sealed the deal on this there. I can see he's mentally broken, but I want to get some more ring time. I want to enjoy this experience a bit more. And he backed off, and he was just chilled for the rest of the fight. There was a couple of points where Arlovsky landed an overhand, and I was like, oh shit, he's after making the wrong decision here. He should have finished him while he had a chance. But then comes out in the second, and just as cool as you like.
He looked
a
so
straight blast
composed.
double.
It was a beautiful double, yeah. It was
nose on the belly button, drive straight in, and then it was under. But to come back to your, you mentioned there, Paul, about that some people were saying that it was a kind of a soft finish, that he didn't have the hooks in. I think that was more because Arlovsky was mentally beaten at that stage.
Yeah.
But I still think he had the squeeze fully on.
They're big.
He put it up quick.
Arms.
He did.
And I don't believe that Arlovsky was just tapping because he was in a bad position.
but he
I
made
believe he
no
was
attempts.
being choked out.
The second hand was at the top of his head.
Yeah, no.
So the second hand wasn't behind the neck. So I don't think the hooks were an issue. I think the hand positioning was more looser than the hooks were, and he could have at least done that.
Tried to strip, yeah.
But like there was a pause. He kind of like he was like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
pause, then tap, and then he made there was time there. So that kind of points to me that he was already mentally after accepting that this kid's too good. I'm not going to get him out of here. He's just after taking me down. I haven't been taken down in years.
Yeah.
You know, and he now he's under my neck. I haven't been submitted since Josh Barnett.
Yeah.
So I think mentally he was broken, and even just the look up as well when Tom Aspinall stood up, Arlovsky just left a kind of a scream of anguish, I suppose, out of him. And then he just looked up at Tom Aspinall and shook his hand, and that facial expression just says it all for me.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I still think that the submission was on. Now, to your point, yes, he could have easily tried to strip the hands away and fought it a little bit more, but I don't think that it was a case that he completely just gave up the ghost either. I think he was being choked out. I just don't think he fought it very well, yeah.
So the other fight that was the other heavyweight fight, Chris Dawkins against Alexei Olenek. This is the one that had a little bit of controversy about the stoppage. So what did you make of the stoppage, Ryan? We probably answered this a while ago.
What was the stoppage again?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Go check your notes there. Where's your notes?
Olenek was still standing against the cage and he just...
Oh, yeah. No, that was the right call, I think. I think that fight was kind of over. Yeah.
He found his notes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh.
So do you reckon it was a fair stoppage? How had Olenek any chance of coming back?
I think man, Chris Dawkins was very good. I think he was obviously throwing his whole body into the punches because like he fell on, like he threw a hook and he actually fell, like because he threw so much force into it, he missed it. Like I think Olenek was very scared of striking because he pulled guard immediately, like, and was just kind of hunting for something, like, and you could see at a point there he was literally holding on to his leg and he was just whacking him, like, and it was kind of like, I didn't think he wanted to be in there with him. I think it was kind of another kind of mental thing, like where he was just kind of like, where he was like, I'm not going to beat this kid, you know.
Yeah,
I think he was mentally stronger than Arlovsky by the end of the fight.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like, I think at the point where he pulled guard, I think he was like,
but that's his thing. He does that a lot. He tried to do it against I can't remember who it was as his last fight. I can't remember who it was, but he's got those finishes of the Ezekiels from Mount Bottom, and
he actually tried to throw up the Ezekiel while they were standing.
Correct.
Against
That's
the
it.
cage.
And he went to fall backwards, and then his hands slipped, and he ended up being on the floor on his own, which obviously he didn't want to be on the floor on his own. He wanted to have the Ezekiel on, but so he has form of pulling guard or dragging guys to the ground. So I wouldn't have said that was particularly bad. It was a moment of worry for Dawkins. You could see it on his face and his corner.
It was the striking. He looked very poor in.
Yeah,
So,
but he always looks poor in that range.
Yeah.
it's not really his game.
It's not like he literally does enough to wade in to get a hand on you, and then he'll drag you into deep waters, and that's his thing, you know.
But we did say this before the fight that wading in was going to be the undoing of him.
Correct.
Because you can't wade in against a guy with Dawkins' boxing.
No, not the accuracy. The accuracy is too much.
Yeah, he's going to clip you and he's going to hurt you. And in the end, he clipped him. No, Olenek was by no means wading in, but he proved that his boxing was just way too crisp. And when he had him hurt, he has serious killer instinct. He just didn't let up until the ref pulled him off as well, similar to the Curtis Blaydes one.
And I know you have loads of notes on this one as well, Ryan. But there was another fight in there: Jared Vandera and Sergey Spivak. I presume you have your notes queued up there on that.
I just need to just cross off one of the notes there from it, and there's another one.
What did you make of that one? You had some thoughts on that one early on, Paul.
No, it was Ryan mentioned about Spivak, or not Spivak, that Jared Vandera mentioned that he wasn't comfortable there.
Yeah, it was in the corner. You can hear him talking to his coach, being like, I'm feeling off. Or he said something like, I'm feeling off, or I'm not on tonight. And like, if you're saying that in the middle of a fight, like, it's a bit too late. Like,
it's curtains, yeah.
But it was the Moldova fella, Spivak, whatever his name is. He had a beautiful takedown. Literally just took him down, held him, and just started throwing shots. And that was it. Like, that was a perfect finish. Like,
yeah.
And that was the one that Vandera called him out after the Dana White Contender Series as well.
Called him out, said it was the fight that he wanted after getting a big KO in Dana White Contender Series, and said that he's been watching him for years and he feels like he has what it takes to beat him, and then went out and just looked, no offense, but looked trash compared to Spivak.
He had some moments of his striking looking very well. Like, I think he came out in the second round and it was the first 10 seconds his striking looked very crisp and then just deflated. But
there was nothing more than that.
Yeah.
There was nothing else to his game other than he felt like he could catch him. And to be calling out a guy that's 4-fight veteran that has fought some tough opponents in the UFC already for your debut and thinking and going in with the game plan that I can catch him, it's a bit naive. I worry for Van der Rade. He's going to have to go back to the drawing board and try and figure out how to round out his game, especially if he obviously saw himself as close to the top 15 going into the UFC.
Yeah,
because that's where Spivak is at. Definitely drop back to the drawing board for Vendra.
Yep. So, any other fights on the card that stood out to you, Paul, that you want to talk about, or are we just going to leave it at that for today?
We will leave it at that. The one thing I will say is there was lots of quick finishes on the card. It was an exciting undercard. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch some of the fights.
So exciting. Just a great undercard.
Yeah. You had Julian.
Yeah, your notes are full up there, Ryan. I mean, I've never seen a copybook so chock.
What do you mean the copybook? That's an A4 bad.
Julian Arosa did have a big flying knee KO. Check that out. Phenomenal. There was some great finishes on the card. It was difficult to pick who was going to get the performance of the night, but yeah, it was a very, very good card. Yeah. Nothing in front of
Ryan's. There's Ryan's notes, by the way.
Here you go, Ryan. Throwing him under the bus. Bad form, Liam. Bad form.
It's always throwing me under the bus.
But yes, I suppose we leave it at that for this week. It was a fun card. We have another night of heavyweights again next week in the main event. You have Rosenstruck versus Gane, which I'm really looking forward to. Two phenomenal strikers, two young guys. So yeah, it'll be another big one next week.
And we don't have a roundtable. Sorry, we don't have a roundtable this week, but just to let people know out there that the video from the last roundtable went up, and we had some fairly controversial topics. Sorry, I have the wrong camera on. We had some fairly controversial topics, including transgender MMA, which I got saddled with. Don't know how that happened,
because you suggested it as a topic.
I don't think I did, Paul.
You definitely did.
What's your opinion on it?
Well, if you want to find out my opinion, you have to go and watch the YouTube video. Go over to the MMA Opinion on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, smash that like button. Actually, I saw someone put up a it might have been in the MMA Opinion admin page group chat, but somebody said that they would pay anything for Khabib to set up his YouTube channel just to once hear him say smash that like button. Good
Definitely
call. Good call. So yeah, head across to the YouTube channel, smash that like button, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, and go check out that roundtable because it was really interesting. And when's the next one of those?
We will have one after UFC 259 and after UFC 260, so we'll have a couple next month.
And we have some upcoming guests as well, so be getting your questions ready. So we are going to bring in
Keen Franey
from the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. Big Man United supporter, so obviously we'll sit him next to Paul, and they can be wearing their respective jerseys and what have you.
If he comes in here in a United jersey, he's going to be kicked out for sure.
And then we also have Mr. Derrick Hickey is going to come on and talk us through some of those scoring and refereeing controversies over the last few years, and where refereeing and judging is trending towards in the next few years as well. I think it'd be an interesting topic. I think a lot of people would have some good questions for him. And then you had you have somebody from
Mr. Ian Bain, the original owner of the MMA Opinion, has said that he'd like to come on for one of the shows to kind of catch up with everyone and give his opinion and his take on what's happening in MMA at the moment. So it's great to have his support on board with the new transition into the new MMA Opinion as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So there you go, folks. We're done.
Ciao.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Are you still drunk right now? Are you still drunk? I went, but it was how young.
This is blue shit.